Hello, everyone. I was very lucky to sit down with English, Science, and ESL teacher Laura Shantz, and she shared with me how she uses classroom agreements to set up her classroom for success. I hope you enjoy our chat.
So a classroom agreement, as far as the way I understand it, is a list of class values, expectations, and related behaviors that the class generates together at the beginning of their time working together. And the way that I've used it, it tends to be responding to the question, well, I guess actually the way I've used it over the years has evolved since I started teaching. But currently, it would be more about a response to the question, how can we create a growth mindset community where everyone feels safe to take the necessary risks to learn? So thinking together about generating ideas together and then creating some kind of document of shared values and expectations. There are actually, it's funny, I reflected a little bit on this question. And there are lots of different reasons. Like there's sort of the more obvious ones, but then I realized there are a lot of benefits that come from them beyond sort of the more obvious ones. But I guess I will start just with the idea that if we have, for me as a teacher, if I start with outlining the expectations with my students, we can return to that agreement together if things come up later in the class. And it's funny because you kind of would assume, oh, you've been in school for a long time, so this, like, you know, all the things, right? Be kind to each other and things like that. But it's amazing that with each new group, forming that together and then having some kind of document, like a visual document that you can refer to, is a powerful way to set positive, supportive, safe classroom norms for the students there. So there's that. Like you have this ultimate document that you as a class agree to try your best as possible to follow these expectations. But then the actual act of creating it is a community building activity in itself. So it could, because you get to split kids into groups, you start thinking about what are these things, like if we can create our own little world here, how can we treat each other and why would we do that? It also is me as a teacher, and I'll talk about this as we talk about how I personally form them. It gives me a chance to introduce the concepts of individual sort of comfort zones and differing abilities and equity, like just the reality that we're all going to be at different places in the class. And then also growth mindset. So I sort of use that as a springboard foundation, I guess, for creating it. So as a teacher, I get to do that. Students reflect on themselves as learners, so there's a metacognitive piece to it. It's also a great critical thinking exercise, so because they have to, one, generate lots, creative brainstorming, like lots of ideas, but then try to hone in on the top sort of 6 or however number you choose as a teacher. So that's great critical thinking. And then there's sort of accountability woven into the process. So instead of me being like, hey, here are my expectations for you, we create it together and they sign off on it. So there's inherent accountability there. So it's a long answer, but those are sort of some of the reasons that I use them. Yeah, every class. So I do ESL and ELD, and then also science. And at the beginning of this, I haven't taught as much science recently, but at the beginning of the science course, I was doing that too. And in fact, I tell my students that. I say I've been teaching for 16 years in a variety of settings, and across secondary, and then also supporting teachers in elementary in my role in the last district that I was working in. And regardless of who I work with, I try to create these expectations together. Now, here's the thing. Sometimes there have been times where I've run out of time or I can't do it to the degree. So it's not like a perfect process every time. And I'm always kind of up against the race for coverage. So, oh my gosh, it's taking so many days and I haven't even started the unit yet. So to be honest, it is definitely, I have to keep on being like, okay, this is worth it. And it is like when the communities that get built in the class, and then all the learning they can do because they feel safe to learn. I don't mean physical safety, by the way, just comfort, safe to take those risks, to put themselves on the line a little bit and try something new. So, but it is tough because it definitely feels sometimes like you're behind before you even started by putting the time in here, but I still think it's worth it. Yeah. And also, if I look at the fact that as a teacher, I'm teaching sort of the whole person, this is such essential understanding and learning. They're going to move from community to community. So I think it's important. So yes, to go fast later, but it seems like all of the sort of research around education is looking, not all, but there's lots of research about sort of going in depth in the value of that. So maybe I do a little bit less, but I do it in a more meaningful, authentic way. So yes, I go slow at the beginning, but I would like to think more about building in some depth and complexity and creating that solid foundation, so that when, say, I'm working as an English teacher, if I'm giving feedback to individual students, then I expect other students to be working at the same time. So I kind of it helps to create the parameters to do some of that. Yeah. And it's not perfect all the time. It really isn't. but it's imperfectly perfect. Sure. So again, this is where I think every teacher has.
We would love for you to connect with us. Follow us on Twitter at Learn Bite Sized. Visit our webpage to find all of the videos we've created in the past year, or send us an email. We would love to hear from you. Send us your feedback. Send us your ideas for future videos. We hope to hear from you soon.